Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Morning Break. I'm Humera Mirza.
And I'm Naveen Raza.
We have a packed show lined up for you today. We will also be looking at current affairs as usual and our regular slots, which I'm sure you know by now, such as Sister Sidra Zaidi. We also have our guest who is a speech and language therapist a little later in the show. That will be interesting, won't it, Naveen?
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that too. But first, it's time for Hadith of the Week. Sticking to our theme of speech, I thought it was only appropriate to choose a hadith this week that talks about the emphasis and importance of speech. Alhamdulillah, we have dozens of hadiths to choose from our holy Ahlul Bayt, that talk about the importance of speech and discourage excessive speaking. They also discourage, obviously, abusive speech. So I was spoilt for choice when I was deciding which hadith to choose from, but I ended up choosing one that actually I found quite amusing. This is from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny. And he says, "A person comes so close to heaven until there remains only a spear's throw between him and it. And then he says something, thereby distancing himself further away than Sinai." So I found this amusing because it's so typical of human behavior. You know, everything's going well, everything's going well, everything's going well. And then you go and say something and you just ruin it all. So I thought this was an interesting one to choose because it's actually talking about how your speech or what you say can actually affect the distance between you and heaven.
I completely agree, and I think what's interesting about that is the example of heaven as well, because what that's showing is that something so good and so heavy in weight in terms of goodness, such as heaven, you can lose it just because of what you say through your speech. And you know, that really makes you think about the power, and I know we've discussed this before, especially when we look at what Sister Sidra Zaidi talks about in terms of using language. But it's just, language is so powerful that it can have the most beautiful effect and actually the most kind of damning effect on yourself. And we've all been in situations where, like you said, we're completely fine and we're actually, you know, thinking, yeah, I know. For example, in an interview, you think, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. And then you say something and you think, I've definitely not got the job now.
Why did I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I also think another interesting point on this hadith is to talk about the concept of riya, which is showing off or doing, you know, making people aware of your good deeds that you've done. And it's so, you know, this is something as an akhlaqi point, and I remember discussing this with my akhlaq teacher, who was saying that, you know, you can do all the good amal in the world, and you can do your night prayers and fasting and everything. But if you tell someone that you're doing all these extra things, you just ruin everything that you've just done, because it comes under showing off, and what you're doing at that point is seeking glory that is from the world, or seeking glory that are from your friends or family, other people, and not the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you do that, then your reward that would have come to you, it doesn't come to you anymore, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, well, you want to seek the glory from the world, so you have your, you know, have your moment of glory, but I won't give you anything in respect of what you've just done. So I think that that's really apt in this hadith, because it's talking about how you could do, you know, amazing amal and be very, very close to heaven. And the only thing that will get in the way of that is if you actually go and say to someone, actually, you know, I'm so tired today because the whole night I was praying. Yeah. You know, and sometimes we do it without thinking, but actually you have to be very conscious of it. Absolutely,
and that's actually what I was going to say, is that sometimes we don't say things because we want any sort of praise from society. We don't want that. But it's just that because I guess we're so used to sharing what we've done in our day, for example, with someone, that it's natural to come home and say, oh, it was really nice today because I helped so-and-so with that, when actually you have no need to tell them at all. So yeah, it's a thing that we do subconsciously, isn't it?
I completely agree. I think that's a very good point, and we need to train ourselves to be more conscious of that, and the good deeds that we do, we want to try and keep those whole and keep the niyat sincere, the ikhlas of it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So thank you for that, Naveen. Thank you. Okay, so inshallah we're all able to take something away from this hadith and actually apply it to our lives. As you know, we'll be bringing you a different hadith every week, so stay tuned for more.
If you have any questions or comments, or would like to share a hadith with us for a discussion in the future, please do email us. The email address is on screen now. It's morningbreak@ahlulbayt.tv. We'd love to hear from you. Now, this week I had the pleasurable task of going to interview Sister Reshma Beg. She has a business called Trufflicious. The name says it all really, but let's take a look at this clip. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Reshma. Thank you for joining us.
Assalamu alaikum, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your company, Trufflicious. How did you get involved with making cakes and desserts?
Trufflicious is basically a made-to-order dessert business. So everything is custom-made for customer specifications, whether they want to choose certain flavors, themes, sizes. Everything is custom-made for them. So it's basically a chance for people to design their own dream dessert.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this? Because I know you used to live in the US, is that right? You used to live in Texas and then you moved over here after you got married. So have you been doing this for a long time?
Well, I've been baking as long as I can remember.
Okay.
I've always had a passion for baking, and I kind of just made cakes for family and friends. And I officially started Trufflicious last year, so it's only been a year.
Okay. It's quite new then.
Yeah, it's quite new.
Okay. And did you go for courses and things like that, or is this all sort of self-taught, or did you do those courses here in the UK or abroad in America?
I've taken some basic cake decorating courses. After I finished university, I had some time just to take some basic ones. I was away from friends and family, and I started. I've always had an interest in baking, so I just started baking and taking some courses then. I started working, I got married, and moved here. And I kind of took a break. I just kind of made cakes for family as well. And after I had my daughter, I had a lot of time at home to restart. And that's when I thought maybe I would expand to making cakes for a general public as well.
Okay. And how did you come up with the name Trufflicious? Because I think that's a very nice name.
Actually, the naming process, I went to a lot of my family and friends and thought, give me some names. What do you think of? What's your favorite dessert? And we came up with a whole bunch of different ideas, and for some reason Trufflicious just clicked with me. I love chocolate truffles, I love chocolate, and I was just thinking, delicious, why not Trufflicious?
Excellent, I think it's a very good choice. Tell me, was it scary for you to think about starting your own business and to actually go into this on a kind of a commercial basis as opposed to just doing it for your friends and family?
It hasn't been scary because I didn't think of it as I'm just going to start off and become, the biggest, best cake maker. I kind of eased into it with steps and thought maybe I'll just expand a little bit here and offer cakes to other than family and friends. And I was just taking it baby steps from then. So it's actually been really fun.
Okay. That's excellent. So do you get, what kind of reaction did you get from the community and from, your friends and family and from your clients?
I've had a pretty good response, positive response. I've been surprised within a year just how much I've already grown the business, mashallah. I think it's been spreading mainly through word of mouth, which means to me that people are enjoying my creations.
Excellent. And do you do online advertising? You have a website, is that right?
I have a website. I don't do any kind of online marketing as such, but I do have a website which is very helpful for people to go and see cakes that I've made and get ideas for their own themes. So generally, I have a cake gallery as well as the flavors and fillings. So it's a good place for people to go and see.
So do you feel that most of your customers have been referred from others and from friends and family, or have people actually just gone onto the website and found it and then phoned you up and said, I came across your website?
No, I think mainly through word of mouth, through friends and family, and I do a lot of stalls and exhibitions as well. So it's a chance for people in the general public just to come see. I do displays to kind of get an idea of what they can have. I try to always make things that are different or unique from what you would find in your normal cake shops.
Right. And how do you find that your cakes and desserts are unique? How do you differentiate them?
Generally, the flavors and the tasting. The reason I started up again here is I found British cakes in general to be very dense, and it's not to say they're bad. They're just different from American cakes. And American cakes tend to be more light and fluffy and moist, whereas European cakes are even they tend to have a lot of cream fillings and less cake in them. So just all these different styles, and I thought I don't really see much American cakes here, and I just thought that I might try introducing some American style cakes as well.
Okay, that's really interesting. I actually never thought about that difference between European cakes and American cakes. I definitely taste the difference between European chocolate and American chocolate, but I've never had that You know, what do you think of the differences in chocolate across the
I think
the
the
pond?
chocolate here is much better. European chocolate's much better.
Okay, I was just looking at your cakes, and if you can see this, you can see the sort of slight, I can see kind of an Indian influence in some of the decoration. It looks like mehndi designs, which I think is really interesting, and it's really pretty. So do you use your kind of cultural heritage when it comes to decorating and things?
Yes, I do, definitely. And these cupcakes, and I was thinking of what kind of cupcakes I was going to make for today. These are actually for an exhibition where I thought a lot of potential brides might be coming, and mothers of brides or mother-in-laws, and they might be thinking, what could we have as a favor, or like wedding favors, or sometimes you have trays that you take for weddings as gifts. And so I was thinking mehndi along that line. So.
I think that's really interesting, very creative, mashallah. So I think that's great. So tell us, what kind of orders do you get for weddings? I mean, what sort of things are people looking for when it comes to catering for weddings? Do you get orders for truffles and cakes? Because it's quite sort of unique and new. You know, in our cultures, we tend to have kind of the traditional laddus and the Indian sweets and baklava probably even. But this is quite a unique and fresh idea. So is this picking up then with weddings?
I have some interest in actual dessert buffets. So in addition to the traditional wedding cake, a whole kind of arrangement of cupcakes and truffles and small things that people can enjoy, because usually wedding cakes tend to be very, very expensive, and people get kind of small slices for what they're paying. So it's kind of, a wedding is indulgent sort of thing. So it kind of dessert buffets and also favors, wedding favors, are quite popular. So.
Okay, and are you able to do all of this yourself? Do you have help, or do you work on your own?
Right now I do all of it by myself with the support of my husband. But inshallah, if the business grows, I might.
Okay. And do you get orders mainly from your local area, or do you ever get requests from sort of further out in the UK?
Mainly my local area, but I've had requests as far as East London and Croydon as well. Okay. Again, through word of mouth. I don't really advertise in those areas, but I have delivered all the way in Croydon as well.
Okay, wow. And do you find it hard to juggle kind of your home life and your daughter and bringing her up, and obviously, everything that you have to do there, plus your business? Is that difficult?
I always have to think about balancing everything, always finding the right balance, as with anything, with your professional and personal and social obligations. So it can get overwhelming if I don't find the right balance.
Yeah, and how do you find, how do you juggle all of that? What do you think is the best way of doing it? I mean, your work, I'm assuming, is seasonal, so probably when the wedding season is around and kind of summer and, possibly.
No, actually, it's not just wedding season. I do a lot of birthday cakes as well. So birthdays happen all the time, and a lot of my customers are not just Muslims.
And what's your favorite dessert to make then? Tell us about what you like making.
I like making anything chocolate, really. I've been experimenting with ice cream.
Okay.
Actually, so that's kind of something new that I've been going into, and it's a lot of fun because I can, the possibilities are just endless. You have so many flavors to mix.
And do you use fresh fruits for ice cream?
Yes, fresh fruits, if they're in season.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your truffles. I'm just looking at these lovely truffle pops. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us a bit about these. What's inside here?
These are chocolate truffles, milk chocolate centers, and they're basically on a little lollipop. Okay. And I kind of designed these thinking of, again, wedding favors, or you can even have them, I guess, for birthdays, if, maybe put like hundreds of thousands on them instead, or like your favorite sweets.
Okay.
But
and do you do different truffle centers, or are they most of them are milk chocolate?
These are all milk chocolate because that tends to be the most popular flavor. But you could do milk, dark, white chocolate. You can have nuts. You can have almond flavoring. Okay. So peppermint. I mean, the possibilities for truffles as well. Pretty much anything that you like.
Okay, excellent. That sounds great. All of this truffle talk has made me very hungry. So I'm going to go and taste some of these desserts, and we wish Sister Reshma all the best with her truffle business. If you would like to visit her website, it's on screen right now. It's trufflicious.biz, is that right? Trufflicious.biz. So do have a look, and we wish Sister Reshma all the best. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Those desserts look so yummy. Did you get to try any of them?
Of course, I tried most of them actually. And just to confirm, they were delicious. So the name Trufflicious is very appropriate. But don't worry, Humera, Sister Reshma actually sent us a whole plate of goodies for us to try in the studio. So you can try those in the break.
I really like how that cupcake looks, and you know, she mentioned that she's using that as a wedding favour. It's very unusual for a wedding favour, isn't it? It's quite large in size as well.
Yeah, that's right. She actually has some very interesting ideas. So she had lollipops, truffle lollipops, and she had cupcakes and various other things that you can use as kind of innovative new trend wedding favours. So it was really interesting. And as the summer's coming up, I'm sure lots of people are planning their weddings, so maybe they can take some ideas from that. If you want more information on Sister Reshma's truffle business, you can have a look at her website, which is www.trufflicious.biz.
I also thought that was really inspiring how she's set that kind of business up herself, and I think more and more women are actually doing that, aren't they? They're getting up and just, whether it's a cake and dessert making business or anything else. So, you know, I just think it's really encouraging to see, and I think specifically there's a sort of a need, I guess, for more Asian or Arab women to be making things that are for weddings, for example. I guess people have stopped going to mainstream cake companies and wanting something a little bit more individual as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely nice to have a bit of culture as well to incorporate that into the whole wedding theme, so alhamdulillah.
Still to come on the show, we have our very own life coach, Sister Sidra Zaidi, but for now, I'm going to tuck in some of these treats, so see you soon. A little later in the show. That will be interesting, won't it, Naveen?
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that too. But first, it's time for Hadith of the Week. Sticking to our theme of speech, I thought it was only appropriate to choose a Hadith this week that talks about the emphasis and importance of speech. Alhamdulillah, we have dozens of Hadith to choose from our holy Ahlul Bayt that talk about the importance of speech and discourage excessive speaking. They also discourage, obviously, abusive speech. So I was spoilt for choice when I was deciding which Hadith to choose from, but I ended up choosing one that actually I found quite amusing. This is from the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his progeny. And he says, "A person comes so close to heaven until there remains only a spear's throw between him and it. And then he says something, thereby distancing himself further away than Sinai." So I found this amusing because it's so typical of human behavior. You know, everything's going well, everything's going well, everything's going well, and then you go and say something and you just ruin it all. So I thought...
And I know we've discussed this before, especially when we look at what Sister Sidra Zaidi talks about in terms of using language. But it's just, language is so powerful that it can have the most beautiful effect and actually the most kind of damning effect on yourself. And we've all been in situations where, like you said, we're completely fine and we're actually, you know, thinking, yeah, I know. For example, in an interview, you think, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. And then you say something and you think, I've definitely not got the job now.
Why did I say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another edition of Morning Break. I'm Humera Mirza.
And I'm Naveen Raza.
We have a packed show lined up for you today. We will also be looking at current affairs as usual and our regular slots, which I'm sure you know by now, such as Sister Sidra Zaidi. We also have our guest who is a speech and language therapist.
This was an interesting one to choose because it's actually talking about how your speech or what you say can actually affect the distance between you and heaven.
I completely agree, and I think what's interesting about that is the example of heaven as well, because what that's showing is that something so good and so heavy in weight in terms of goodness, such as heaven, you can lose it just because of what you say through your speech. And you know, that really makes you think about the power